All right, so it is 11 o'clock. I am going to get started with today's craft. Once again, my name is Karina. I am the lead graphic designer at the Morton Grove Public Library. Thank you guys for stopping by this week's crafting live session. Today's craft is paper heart wreath. So as you can tell with this one, it is just, a bunch of little hearts stapled together to make a circle. You can make it as large or as small as you would like, depending on what your preference is and the space you have at your home to hang it. And then obviously I did a variety of color paper, but you can use whatever color pattern strips of paper you have at home. So we've been doing crafting live for the last, I think, like 2 months maybe. And hi, my sister is tuning in from California. Hi, Michael. Hi. So we've been doing crafting live for a couple weeks now, and it's been a lot of fun. We've been doing a variety of projects. If you haven't checked out any of the other projects, please do so. You can find it on our YouTube page, our Instagram page, and then once we started doing it on Facebook Live, there's the videos that you can watch from our previous Facebook Live tutorials. So check those out. If you create any of our projects, please post it, tag us. We'd love to see it. So as I start with all of my my sessions, I'm going to go through the materials list for this particular project. Once again, it is for the paper heart wreath. So hopefully if you are crafting with me, you have already cut the strips of paper, and then you have the other supplies that you'll need for this project. But really quickly, the supplies you're going to need is 32 strips or 16 pairs of 1 inch by 11 inch paper. So I just took a normal copy size paper or letter size paper, copy paper, and just cut them into 1 inch strips. And then, so that's where I came up with the 1 by 11. You will also need glue stick and then a stapler. So you can tell with these, so all of these little segments are actually the strip of paper that we will we will fold in half without creasing. So you kind of want that loop. And then we're going to glue the bottom part of the strip of paper. Okay. And then we're going to do them in pairs because they're hearts. And obviously it's not as noticeable if you're going to do a single color wreath, but you see how I did kind of a multicolor wreath. So when you want to do that, you just want to make sure that your pairs are the same color, or not. It's your wreath, so you can do whatever you want. But yeah, so that's why I was saying you need 32 total strips of paper, but you do want 16 pairs if that's important to you, that your hearts are the same color. So once we build all of these, we're going to glue them together so that way they're like this. And then what we're going to do then is we're going to stack all of these and we're going to staple those together to make that circle. I didn't mention this earlier, but if you have any questions during the program, just comment and then I will get to them. Okay. So you're going to need strips of paper, you're going to need glue, and you're going to need a stapler. I find that glue stick is probably the easiest adhesive to use for this. It dries quickly and it's not very messy, even though I am still a very messy glue stick user, but it's not as messy as if I used liquid glue. So this wreath is rather large. It's about at its widest 14 inches. So if you find that it's too big, you can always lessen the number of hearts to make it. So if you wanted it to be smaller, I would maybe just remove 2. And then that would make a smaller wreath. So it really is up to you. Another thing is I am using copy paper. So when it's heavier and it doesn't have that kind of it's not very stiff. So if I were to just hang this at one point, you see that it's not really a circle, it's more of an oval. So I encourage you guys, if you are using copy paper at home, one second, sorry. If you are using copy paper at home, and you find that it is drooping, when you go to hang it, you will probably need to hang it in two areas to kind of make that circle, just because it probably won't make a full circle if you just hang. It'll probably droop. But it's actually really pretty. So anyway, so just to keep that in mind when you are hanging. So I will remind you guys at the end of class about that. So anyway, so we're just going to get right to it. So hopefully you have with you all of your strips of paper. My goodness. And what you're going to do is you're going to just take one by one. It's repetitive. So I hope you're ready to glue 32 strips of paper with me. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your strip of paper and your glue stick ready. And you're going to, because we're going to make all of these little sections, okay? So really you're going to just fold or like that. And for the most part, you don't want your loops to be super tiny. So when you start gluing, I would glue about 2 inches. I think it's 2 inches. Yeah. So 2 inches from the edge. So not that, because you kind of want a larger loop than that. So about 2 inches is good. And what I do is that once I am happy with my glue, with the loop that I have, I actually use that as a template to glue the other one. So that way I know that they're kind of mostly the same length of the stem. Okay. So you're going to go for 2 inches to glue from the bottom. Okay. So you're just going to take your glue stick and you're going to eyeball 2 inches and you're just going to glue. So that I glued about this much, okay? And once you've got the glue on there, you're going to just make sure that they line up to the other edge and that the sides are lined up. And then you're just going to glue. Apply some pressure. And you should have something that looks like this. Once again, this kind of, with the 2 inch, that makes a heart that is about this size. If you want a smaller looped heart, go for it. You would just have to glue a little bit higher. But I find that this is a good size loop for the half of a heart. Okay. So once you have that, I'm going to take my next one. And what I actually do is I lay the one I just created. And then I use this as a template to see how the amount of the stem or the amount of the paper I actually have to glue to kind of just, so that way it's all consistent and similar. So I lay it down on my paper like this, on my surface like this, and then I kind of just glue up until where I find I stopped with the other one, okay? So it's gonna be my template just for, to give me an idea of where to glue up to. So really, we're just gonna glue 32 of these little sections. So like that, put it aside. And then once we have all of these, we're going to glue the 2 halves together to make the heart. That. So you should have something like this, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna, at some point later, we're gonna glue those 2 sections together. So you're just gonna do this for all of the strips. If you have one of those, and I don't know if I have one here. I actually do, hold on. So glue is great. The glue stick is great. But if you have, like I have an adhesive roller also, like this. So if you have one of these, this might actually also be just as easy as using the glue stick to glue these strips together to make the loop. So for the 14-inch the 14-inch Wreath, you are putting together 16 pairs of these loops, so 32 strips total. If you want a smaller wreath, which I may make a smaller wreath for this one, so I may just do like 14 pairs of this, just so that I can see what a smaller wreath would look like. So you're just going to glue all of these. If you do find, and I didn't do it with a heavier paper, but I'm sure you could probably use a cardstock. I'm not sure how that, I feel like that would work. The thing with cardstock that I would just be aware of is because I'm using regular copy paper, it does kind of loop very nicely without a problem. You just want to avoid, if you are using a heavier sheet of paper, that you don't want any kind of creases on the loop, that side, just because you want the hearts to kind of be very organic and round. So you just want to make sure that if you are using heavier paper and your loops don't have the creases, because sometimes I feel like when I deal with heavier paper, it does crease in weird places randomly sometimes. So just keep that in mind, that you kind of do want these heart edges, the curved edges, to be as smooth as possible. So if you find that it's creasing when you're using the heavier paper, I would probably recommend just using lighter copy paper instead of cardstock. If any of you are using a heavier paper and it turned out fantastic, please, post it and tag us, because I'd like to see how those look. So we're just gonna do this. So I am still using that first one we did as my template for just the amount or the length of paper that I'm gluing. So that way I'm trying to make these sections as consistent as possible. So just keep going, gluing all of these little sections. So obviously this is the most time-consuming part of this project. The rest of the part, like the project, is pretty quick. It is just gluing all of these strips of paper together, but it'll be worth it because it's super cute. I'm curious if you guys are using pattern paper, or if you're doing multicolor like I am, or a single color. So you're just gluing all of these little strips of paper together. So the important thing is that you aren't creasing this part, because those are going to be, that's going to be the heart part of our project. How are we doing out there with the gluing? Like I mentioned, this is the most time-consuming part of this project, but obviously, like I said, oh, awesome. Christine, your butterflies last week were really pretty. Thank you for sharing those. So we're just gluing. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, if you wanted a smaller sized wreath, you would use less. You would use less strips of paper. So instead of the 16 pairs of paper that I had mentioned, you probably want to go like 14 or less than that if you wanted something smaller. Christine, I think you posted, you replied to our, because I saw it. You replied to the video, I think, and then that's how I saw the photo. So I am almost there. Hopefully you guys are also coming close to gluing all of your strips. Okay. So I am going to try to do a smaller wreath this time. So instead of the 16 pairs, I should have 14 because I didn't roll 4. So so hopefully you have all of your little halves, heart halves, oh my goodness, all glued. So mine, all of here. So I'm going to start pairing them off. Obviously this isn't important if you are using the same color paper, or if it doesn't matter that, or if you don't care that your hearts are paired off in the same color. So that's the next step that I'm going to do because mine are very specific to color pairs. So I'm just going to put them in their color pairs on my surface. It'll just be easier to find them when I start gluing these halves together. So bear with me for 1 second. That's, nope, that's, all right. Here. All right, so on my surface, I have all of my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all of my pairs. And I'm doing 14 pairs because I want to do a smaller, I want to try to do a smaller. So instead of the 16 heart wreath, I'm going to try to do a 14 heart wreath. So once you have them all paired up, what you're going to do is the next step is going to glue the 2 halves together. Okay. So to do that is you're just going to take one of your halves in the same color pair, or if you don't care about that, then, you know, just 2 halves. And then you're going to try to, you're going to glue to just where, you see how for here, I'm going to glue right below where those, the two strips meet. So I'm not going to glue higher than that. I'm just going to glue a little bit lower than where those 2 strips meet. Okay, and then with my other pair, I'm going to put them together, making sure that they are flushed, you know, at the bottom and on the sides. Like that. Okay. So you're just going to apply some pressure, and we are just putting our hearts together. Okay, so you're going to do that for all of your pairs. So for me, it's going to be the 14 pairs. If you are doing the full 16 at home, you're going to have to do that for all 16 pairs. So you're just going to take one and you're going to glue the one side and then glue them in their pair. So we're just making the heart at this point. Like that. So you're just going to do this for all of your pairs. Go. Like this. So we are just gluing our pairs together to make a full heart. And we're only gluing the bottom parts of the heart, not the loop part. Thanks, Vicky. And I really like the flexibility of this just because you get to pick whatever color. And I always say that when it comes to like handmade anything, is that you get to just kind of personalize it to your needs. So if you have like a themed shower or like a themed thing for your home, you can make these colors to whatever color scheme you have going for anything. So pretty easy. All right, so that was my last pair of hearts. How's everyone doing? Are you guys done gluing? Have you paired off your hearts? They're so fun to look at that. They're so fun. All right. So this is the wreath, the sample wreath, right? So I'm trying to make mine a little bit smaller. So I cut out two pairs. So it should be a little bit smaller than this one. What we're going to do next is, now that we have our hearts, we're just going to staple it together to make that wreath. It also makes a really fun garland. So I will show you guys that. It's the garland is just the wreath not stapled in a circle. So yeah, so the next step's going to be taking these. You're going to need your stapler. I think we are done with the glue stick. So for me, I am going to want to do it because of the color, the color things that paper that I'm using. I have a very specific way of arranging it, where I want two colors of the same colors together and then moving on to the next one in kind of like a gradient. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. If you just want to alternate, red, blue, green, do it. If you're using pattern paper and that doesn't really matter, you could just line it up in whatever way you want. So I'm going to pair off mine. There's a lot of pairing off in this one, which is repetitive, which I like, makes it easy. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I forgot one. 2. Yeah. Forgot one more. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. All right. So mine is paired off. And really, that just means that all the colors that I want to staple together, are together. So, okay, so what we're going to do is with these sections, so you're going to take the first two, okay? And you see how because we didn't glue the loop part, the stem part of the other heart will fit nicely inside, okay? And this is where what I like to do is you want it to sit in there, okay, just comfortably. And then when I staple, I hold it at like the base, and then I staple here. I staple kind of closer to the loop as I can. Okay, so I only hold it here so that way it doesn't slip very easily. So I'm going to take my stapler and holding it at the bottom, at the base, I'm going to staple right there. Okay, to make that. And really what this is just stapling each of these hearts onto each other. So I'm going to take my next one. Once again, I'm going to nestle it in that section that we did, in the loop part that we didn't glue. Making sure the important thing about this is that it's also flushed, so that way it's not, you see how like all of it is lined up. So just keep that in mind when you start stapling. You kind of want it to be together and not sticking out like that, okay? So keep everything as flush as possible. So like that. Now that it's the place I want it, I'm going to hold it at the stem like this. And then I'm going to take my stapler and I'm going to staple not super high up, but kind of like maybe like the thing is resting right above where my fingers are, and staple. Okay, and you're just going to continue to do this until all of your pairs. Okay, so like that, nestled. Once again, keeping everything as flushed as possible. I am holding it at the bottom so that way it doesn't slip. And I'm going to staple. Like that. Then I'm going to move on to my next color. Same thing. Once again, keeping it flushed. Like that. Holding it at the bottom. And then stapling. You're just going to keep going. So like this, holding it at the bottom. And then staple. Okay, just going to keep going. Holding it at the bottom and stapling the top. Okay. Just keep going. Keeping it flushed, remember? And then, so once you get through all of the gluing of the strips, it does pick up and gets easier. Like that. My last two, because I am just doing a 14 heart one instead of a 16 heart, so that this way my wreath is a little bit smaller. So like that, everything is lined up, holding it at the base and then stapling a little higher. Last one. Okay, holding it at the base. All right, so this is and this is what I'm saying, how, ooh. So if you didn't want to make a wreath, the wreath would just be taking that last bit and then doing the same thing here to kind of round it out like that. Oh, that's really cute. But if you just wanted a garland, you've got it. So it's actually really versatile. So you can just keep it like this if you wanted to hang it and just do a wall of these. Super cute. But yeah, it works for as a garland too. All right, but for our purposes today is a wreath. So what I'm going to do is, now that I've got all of this, I'm going to just stick, because I've got all of my pairs already on here, I'm going to stick this end into the last heart that I create or stapled together. And similar to the way I did the rest of them, I'm just going to make sure that it's flushed. I'm going to hold it at the bottom, the base, like that. And I'm just going to staple. And this is what's going to make that rounded wreath shape. Ta-da. So this is the 14-inch, and it's actually it's a good manageable size. This was the 16. The 16 heart one, and this is the 14. So it's a little bit smaller, but just as pretty. All right, so that is the paper heart wreath. Once again, the most time-consuming part of this project was the gluing of the strips together. So hopefully you guys did that and were able to create your wreath. If not, very easy to obviously continue doing gluing, stapling after class. So once you have the complete project, please post it or email it to us, and then we will check it out. So what did I want to say? Another thing that I started off the class with is that because of the weight of it, and because we're not using very sturdy paper, because I'm just using copy paper, just remember that hanging it on one point like this probably will keep it, will have it droop a little bit. So if you do want this to be hung, I would recommend that you hang it in two areas to kind of make, so like right where my fingers are, to kind of make that circle. So just because when I first tried to take that photo, I did find that one in the center just kind of made it droop into an oval instead of a circular wreath. So hopefully you guys had fun for today's project. Next week will be the final week for Crafting Live, at least for now. We will be making paper lotus. So we started off with a paper flower. I'm ending with a paper flower. That event is already listed on our Facebook page event. So check out the material list for that. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.